What up? Welcome to another edition of Served. I am Andy Roddick, Techie Sean, producer Mike. We are just kind of checking in. Hard for me to stay on the sidelines this entire week with the excitement that has taken place at Roland Garros. Wanted to jump on and do a bit of a semi-final preview, women's side. Men's side, tell you what I got right, tell you what I got wrong, tell you what I think moving forward. Disappointing news that we wanted to address. We released our latest episode a couple days ago, and we had shot it right before basically Novak had pulled out and pulled through the match that he was in against Cerundolo, and then pulled out with an apparent knee injury. And since then, the updates haven't gotten much better. There was an issue. You could see he was hurting. You figured, at watching it, it felt like it was buildup from finishing at 3 a.m. and then another 5-setter. His schedule was an absolute, for this tournament, and the way it was kind of organized and when he got scheduled was an absolute pile of shit. You can only deal with so much as a tournament. When the rain stacks up like it has, or like it did for the first week of the French Open, someone's going to pay the bill physically at some point. Because you have to fit matches in along a certain timeline. And if you don't put them in to get them finished, by 3 a.m., then all that does is mean that someone's going to have to play a back-to-back. I don't know what's worse. So no fault. You can't control weather. And when you're basically only playing on 2 courts for the entire first week of a tournament, it builds up and it's shitty. Novak had recently said that this knee had been bothering him for unknown amount of time, but at least a couple weeks, which might help explain his form coming in. I think it's a mixture of lack of match play, obviously some turnover inside of his team. That messes with preparation. I don't think his body has been reliable this year, and that's not a knock on anyone. It's more of a testament to it's amazing that it's taken this long for Father Time to at least hint at being a significant part of Novak's life, for the future. Obviously, producer Mike just told me before we went on that the latest is that he had surgery this morning for a meniscus tear. A lot of it will depend on how bad the tear is. When I was 17, tore my meniscus. Obviously, that's a younger body, but I played on it for like 4 or 5 months. Did it again last year, and was able to kind of just rest and let it heal. It's imperfect, but it's still there. Difference being, I don't have to play Wimbledon in a month. I think this surgery, at least based on every kind of recovery I've seen from this type of injury, including my own, puts the Olympics out, puts Wimbledon seriously at risk, barring some miraculous recovery, because it's not just okay, my knee is okay, good enough to play in a month. You have to train, right? And you have to put in yards, especially Novak. Your special sauce is being able to grind people down, stay in rallies, switch directions, ask the question over and over and over again. This isn't like an Isner type or even a Roger type where you can decide you're going to come forward a bunch, where you're going to shorten points. Novak needs his wheels. He needs his defensive skills. Probably the best defensive player in the history of tennis. Defense, you rely on your legs. His leg has just had surgery. So you don't want to be alarmist. You don't want to be hyperbolic. I don't think it's crazy to have the thoughts in the back of your mind. And listen, as our friend Paul Anacone says, bet against the greats at your own peril. You'll end up carrying the bag more often than not. But when someone is 37 years old and there is the body, even in Monte-Carlo, struggling for breath, looked like the fitness wasn't quite there. A Herculean effort at the French Open to get through on a knee that was torn. If it was torn today, it was torn 3 days ago, right? That's just the way it is.
Yeah, he said it's been bothering him for some time.
Yeah,
he had said that after the match.
Unbelievable effort to even get through those matches. When you're 37, and you start having surgeries on your knees, it's not the same surgery that Federer had. Federer's was much more serious and became much more serious because it became a problem that wasn't getting fixed. A torn meniscus in your knee is not like a massive thing when you're 24, 25, 26 years old and you have time. This is the worst possible time because it's the shortest turnaround time between slams. The timing of it sucks. Couldn't suck worse, especially Novak. Even if guys are gaining on him on hard courts, even if they're gaining on him on clay courts, on grass, it's a different animal. His ball flight stays low. He can control the middle of the court. I'd say grass is probably his best surface right now, and probably the worst surface for a lot of his the guys he's going against, but the most uncertain surface. So couldn't be worse timing for Novak. We obviously hope he gets better soon. Go ahead, Mike.
When does he? When does he make the call? Right? Is he going all the way up to July 1st?
Yeah, he will.
Or when do they typically have to make the call? Day before the draw, morning of the draw.
If he pulls out in 2 weeks, then it's bad, and I think that puts the U.S. Open in jeopardy. Right? Do you just call it a wrap on this year and say, hey, listen, I'm really going to try to go really healthy, really big for one more season? But like he doesn't have to pull out. He probably, like, the classy thing to do would be if you know you're not going to play, if on the Monday before the Wimbledon starts, there's no chance you're going to play. You haven't hit a tennis ball, you haven't been doing fitness, you can't win the tournament. Which it's different with some people. It's like, hey, if I get in and win 2 matches, that's a paycheck that matters. With Novak, that shit doesn't matter. Like at this point, it's like slam or bust, right? The best thing he can do for the field is to pull out before the draw is made, right? Because then that puts the entire thing into an upheaval. If one of the top 4 guys pulls, then the slots are filled, but it's filled with someone weaker. That all obviously becomes a bit of a weaker section, which stacks other sections. So if he knows he's not going to play, you normally see players at least have that sort of awareness. We hope that he can play. It's a tall order from where I sit. And obviously, I'm no doctor. I'm not in the room. I'm reading the same reports as everyone else. I'm just basing this off of personal experience and what I see with other players. And age is not nothing, right? Because he hasn't been hurt this far doesn't mean that at 37 he is immune to prolonged absences. He's fought it off as well as anyone in history, but this is a huge ask. What's up, Mike?
Do you think if there's a point where they make the call early on, wanting to be ready for U.S. Open, but then also knowing that the Olympics are this year, and that's the one thing he's never got is a gold for the Olympics?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think what happens is, one, he's going to value that gold more than anyone else does. Like, there's not a person who makes a rational argument, and I've seen it out there, and I kind of just roll my eyes where, well, if he doesn't win that gold medal, it changes everything with the conversation. No, it doesn't. It's one tournament every 4 years on a random surface in a random place that gets wedged into the season. I was King Olympics when I first went, and it was like I convinced myself that it was as valuable as a Grand Slam. So much so that I skipped it the next time. And then I went in 2012. It's just not the same for tennis players. It's just not the same, right? You put 4 years of work in and you have to do 6 flips on a balance beam that's 3 inches wide. And this is your chance with a global audience. I left in Athens after I lost to Fernando Gonzalez in the round of 16. And I was like, oh man, oh shit, the world's ending. But oh, well, fuck it. I'll go to New York and try to win the US Open in 10 days. Like it's just a different thing I think for tennis players to pretend like it's the same as every other person who Olympic athlete who also might have a job at Home Depot is crazy. It's crazy town. Same for the NBA, same for, kind of the global sports. It might be precious to Novak, but that decision also is surface dependent, right? Do you have more confidence in your footing, in your ability, the predictable nature of a hard court, even if there's some wear and tear elements, or the sliding on a clay court? I tend to think on a knee that's just been operated on, if you, or like, shit, maybe his camp is like, it's Olympics or bust. This is it. Let's just blow it out. Let's do it. That would surprise me, but I don't know. I've never been in the position where I've been the all-time slams leader and have one thing that I haven't won, right? So I don't know. I would tend to guess. You kind of punt on everything that's an uncertainty for this year. Maybe the U.S. Open is like, I can recover and get in shape in time for that. Maybe Cincinnati before, maybe a 250 before. The Olympics still feels like a short timeline on an unpredictable movement surface. Otherwise, I think you punt. I think you try to get a couple of events in at the end of this year, just so you remember what tennis is. And then maybe you're at the age where it's like, you know what? Let's go down to the blaze of glory. Let's try to win Australia again, for the 27th time. And let's get healthy for next year. But these are all questions that we're guessing at. My best guess is like he's going to be 100% and not take chances, because if he takes chances, takes risks, and they go sideways, then you're looking at the end of your career and it not being your choice. We saw that with Roger. We've seen like little glimpses of that with Rafa over the last 2 years, where we got this nice run of health, but at what cost? So these are all big questions. We hope we see Novak sooner rather than later. I would like to see the passing of the torch, to have a little bit of an extended runway to Sinner and Alcaraz. But the Olympics and Wimby, it's listen, underestimate the greats at your own peril. There is something that makes them different. There is something that makes them tick differently. That is an extreme timeline for recovery, fitness, and form, all three of which are necessary to deliver the results that Novak expects of himself, of his team, so on and so forth. You guys want the good news or the bad news right now?
I vote good. I vote good news.
Cool. Absolutely nailed it on half of my women's predictions. Top half went chalk, had Swiatek and Coco. Swiatek as just dominated. I mean, she's just not losing games. It's like, I remember Rafa, I think it was 08, was like barely losing games to get to to win the tournament. It was like we were betting on, not actually betting, but having conversations, so don't arrest me, on whether or not guys were going to get 3 games in a set. And that's what it kind of feels like with Iga so far. As dominant as a favorite as she was coming in, dare I say, she's only added to that notion pedigree. She has to be feeling good. Obviously, Coco, one of the best players on earth. No doubt she is going to win many, many majors. She is going to be number one in the world at some point. She is going to has been a force. This is no disrespect for her. The matchup has been terrible for her up to this point. I think this is their 11th time. I think she's won once. Coming in, Coco's done a great job. I thought she really rounded the corner in Rome. I thought she was finding form. Indian Wells, Miami, not playing great tennis. Rome, I thought she started hitting the ball fantastically, like ripping forehands. Obviously, the second serve was an issue still in Rome, has righted its course a little bit at Roland Garros, which is great to see. Listen, given the choice of progress or regression, I think we take progress most of the time. Obviously perfect is a tough place to work back from. I know it's easy for us talking heads, dumbasses in the media, to talk about perfect and work backwards from that, but that's not the reality of an athlete. It's you wake up every day, you do your best. It's imperfect, and how do we handle those imperfections, and can we win through those imperfections? I promise you it's certainly easier sitting here analyzing the matches, knowing what someone has to do. I oftentimes knew what I had to do going into a match. Executing against the best players on earth is a different thing. And that's why, even though I was one of the best players in the world for a moment in time, and pretty consistently for a moment in time, I still had a 3-21 record against someone who was just one at a base level better. And that part probably phased me less than the matchup of things. Right. So I'm going to draw the parallel between what Coco's going through with Iga. And it seems like, I talk about her record being bad, and only will I ever do that when I throw myself under the bus first. Right. Like, so 3-21 against someone I was the second best player on grass for probably half a decade. It just sucked because the best player was also his best surface. Like a lot of these things, and that's what we're seeing at the French Open now, right? Losing the finals a couple years ago, quarters, and now it's the Iga test again on the toughest ask. Clay might very well be Coco's best surface. It just so happens that Iga is on her way to being in the conversation for one of the best ever on this surface. Her record has been dominant. I think Coco has to play a near perfect match. I think she has to play outside of her comfort zone. Everything that Iga does well, switching directions, getting the ball up and out of the zone on the forehand side, controlling the middle of the court, not letting Coco get away with the fadeaway forehand, attacking second serve, standing on the baseline, being an intimidating presence. And then being able to hit off-pace serves, which against the big hitters like Sabalenka, Rybakina, they have time. All they want to do is crack it. Coco is a little bit different, right? On the forehand side, she'll roll it. She's not one of those that takes the first ball on the return and just tries to hit winners. So all of those little things melt into a matchup that is tough, that Iga has won a lot of the time in a lopsided fashion. Coco won in tight 3-setter in Cincinnati. I have lived that life. Of my 3 wins against Roger, they were like, I barely fucking won. Like, barely. It wasn't as if I went out and was like, oh, I was way better than him tonight. No, I survived and choked my way to the finish line. Like, Coco needs one of those performances where, listen, I lost the 2009 Wimbledon final, but I executed well. I did exactly what I wanted to. I knew the game plan. It just didn't work out. She has to have that type of game plan, which I have full faith in Brad and team putting together. She's just going to have to do things that she's not comfortable doing at a very high level of execution. So if you haven't gathered it by now, I don't think this matchup is truly indicative of how Coco is playing or how we should value her as a player overall. It's just she's playing the best player on earth, of which there might be 2 or 3 at any given moment, and she might be the second best player at any given moment. But there is someone that is better. Iga Swiatek, anyone who says she hasn't been better than anyone over the last 3 years is taking crazy pills. Like, not every month has she been better. Sabalenka's had 3 months runs, but at scale, she's been better than anyone over the last 3 years, and her results have spoken to that. It's just a tough matchup, right? It's frustrating if you're, where Coco is, and it's like, listen, I do all of these things well, but the things that I do specifically well that bother other people might not bother Iga as much. And conversely, what Iga does well plays into my weaknesses like a glove. Like it's a good fit. So I like Iga. I've liked Iga from the beginning. I like her even more now that there aren't any 6'2" giants hitting the ball through her anymore, which leads to if I didn't give away the ending already, Sabalenka and Rybakina both go down, which I was surprised at.
Shocked.
Yeah, Mira Andreeva. Listen, I love the way she plays. I like her toughness. I like her. Her court IQ or tennis IQ at 17 years old is phenomenal. The special potion that doesn't jump off the TV screen of being able to switch directions at will and find, when you can switch directions, the next ball you can find the pattern that you want. It's what Novak Djokovic has done so well for so long. He's the only person that can find the rally they want against Rafa Nadal, against the leftiness, because he can knock down that high backhand and find Rafa's backhand. And then all of a sudden he can get inside the court and kind of maneuver. Way easier said than done. Andreeva, I'm not saying she's Novak Djokovic, so put your Twitter fingers away. I'm saying her ability to switch directions, it doesn't jump off the screen, right? It's not the physicality of Sabalenka where, Aunt Sue can look and say, I get what she does because she just overpowers people. And I can see on the TV that her ball moves faster than someone else's, right? It's very obvious. Rafa's physicality is obvious. Roger's, artistry is obvious. Novak switching directions and getting the pattern that he wants is like Bret the Hitman Hart, where he gets you in holds. He's not dropping elbows from the top rope in a dramatic fashion. Like, it's just what she does is so nuanced at such a young age, and I'm so impressed. Listen, at 17, your body isn't the fastest it's ever going to be. It's not the most powerful your body is ever going to be. Not everyone is Rafa and Serena where at 17 they look like they can bench press dump trucks like that. We mostly at 17 you're not hitting your physical prime until you're 3 or 4 years later. What she's been able to do, I didn't think that she had the physicality, nothing to do with her mentality, nothing to do with stylist, nothing to do, but just the physicality to take out someone like a Sabalenka, who is, a powerhouse. Took her out in Madrid in like a straightforward fashion, 1-4. If they had to play again tomorrow, I would choose Sabalenka again. If they had to play tomorrow, I would choose Rybakina again. So save your criticism, because you would too. You're lying if you say otherwise. But I'm just so impressed with her tennis IQ at such a young age. That is a natural gift. It is a sign of intelligence. She recognizes patterns. She's able to decipher, fix in real time, make up for the fact that she's not hitting it as hard as everyone else or with as much spin as everyone else. Her superpower is switching directions, finding the pattern she wants. That is his skill. Even Novak didn't have that skill when we first saw him out on tour. This is a special type of tennis mind. I think the closest comp that I've seen, minus this lady I'm about to mention, has a little bit more flair. She was a little bit smaller, but Martina Hingis had that when at a young age. She was 16 years old, 15 years old when she was dominating tennis. She could come in, she could switch directions. Her tennis IQ was, off the charts, and she eventually got swallowed by the people who were 6'3" and just could go through her, right? Where you can't protect against a 65-mile-an-hour second serve. So Andreeva is going to be bigger, stronger, faster. The only thing that could possibly be a speed bump is a reaction to fame, a reaction to expectations, which I personally think is the hardest thing in all of sports. Is like, she's not supposed to win the match against Sabalenka. That is a freer feeling than Swiatek is feeling going in saying, if I don't win, it's a disappointment. Those are two totally different sides of the coin. But Andreeva, I think we all knew it. It's not like I'm, going out on much of a limb. I think we all knew that she would be in this position at some point. It's a year earlier than I thought, if I'm being honest. So credit to her team. Conchita Martinez, by the way, like we don't talk enough about her as a coach. Took Muguruza to 2 Grand Slam titles, has been in the picture and not publicly in the picture. Like, she's not one of the look at me coaches like we see so often now. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Sabalenka looked like something was really bothering her. You want to point out the good and give people credit before you point out that someone may have been compromised. Sabalenka does not whine about stuff on court. She gets temperamental. She'll break shit. She'll yell at someone, but she is not a whinger. She is not someone who lets you know every time something is wrong with them. Something was bothering her, stomach issues, don't know what it was. She was not 100%. That also doesn't matter because you play who is across the net on that given day. Unfortunate for her, regroup, but take nothing away from Andreeva getting, the intelligence is really impressive. Really, really impressive. And especially playing this style of game and kind of creating some ownership over it at that age is just phenomenal. So Paolini played great, won in Dubai, biggest title of her career. I think beat Kalinskaya, I think, in the final of that one. Looking for big things in the clay, and it just didn't really present itself. You think the product market fit is there, created a lot of speed, is quick, natural mover. All the things were set up for like a big clay court season off of a great beginning to the year for her. Didn't work out that way. Won doubles in Rome with Irani, got matches, was, even though she wasn't playing great in singles, was still putting in yards, getting match prep, still had to make returns at break point. You still had to do all of these things. Is basically just Rybakina obviously is a better, more powerful player, has the height, is able to drive through. One of the best second serve returners on tour. Paolini defending that at her second serve at a higher clip as far as percentage of points won, even more so than her first serve, is a Herculean effort. That would not happen at scale probably over a 3 out of 5 set match. And or if they played this match every day for 2 weeks, that would not be the recipe for success. But again, you only have to be better than someone for 2 sets a day. Andre told me something amazing one time. We were in Australia. It was hot as life out. It was one of those where 140 degrees on court, Australia type days. coming in. I'm like, man, that's hot. He goes, will you shut the fuck up? I'm like, all right, well, hi, hero. And he goes, easy we have it. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I just like almost vomited during practice. What do you know? He goes, how many people only have to be better than one person a day at their job? He's like, most people play the field every day. Most people have to win against the field every day. We only have to win against one person. And I think that's kind of what Paolini did today. I think Rybakina, not Sabalenka, is the better player. I think at scale, she wins this match 7 out of 10 times. But credit to Paolini. Didn't have a lot of singles progress coming in and was able to just to turn it. I think I like Andreeva in this semi. I think she's going to be able to spread the court. Paolini is not big, probably 5'5" or less. When someone is 5'5" or less, and you can kind of extend the court so she can hit line, and we talked about that superpower, that makes the court a lot bigger, especially for someone that reach isn't quite there. I think Paolini is a little bit older, is going to feel it a little bit more. I don't think Andreeva knows the consequences of what's going on. I think she's at the moment in her career where it's like, oh, I'm going to be here 77,000 more times. I know I certainly thought that, and it certainly didn't work out that way. But ignorance is bliss a lot of the times. I like Iga Andreeva in the final. I think Iga rolls. I think this is her title, and I like it more now that Sabalenka and Rybakina are out of the tournament. So that's where we're at. I think did we convince T2 to let us do a full recap show instead of kind of something that is more relevant all of the weeks?
We'll be on Monday evening. Yes.
Sick. Thank you, Tennis Channel. Thank you for letting us deliver a better show for people watching on T2, which we certainly always appreciate. So we'll do a full recap rundown. I think we're going to get Kim Kleisters on. I know that you've texted her. I will certainly text her. One of our partners in crime. We will get John Wertheim on to see what was the deal. He will be dialing in from Paris Sunday evening so that we can get you a Monday evening show. Hopefully they run it a bunch. And we will see who's right and who's wrong. And on the men's side, exciting stuff. Obviously, a little bit of weirdness with what we had talked about before with Novak pulling out, Ruud not having to play a quarterfinal match. I worry about it less with someone like Casper Ruud because he's gone deep in majors before. It's not as if the moment's going to get to him. He has played semifinals in majors before. He's won 3 semifinals in majors before. Which is a huge, huge deal. 2 finals here at Roland Garros back in the semis. So this is not someone who is undeserving to be in a semis. This is not someone who, you think of Kyrgios a couple years ago where I don't think he would have been the favorite or he hadn't been to a semifinal of a slam before when he got the walkover and got to play Novak in the final. I don't think this is that situation. Casper is proven, has played well in a 3 out of 5 set format over 2 weeks, knows how to navigate that scenario. They played last year in the semis, and Ruud rolled Alex Zverev in the semis there last year. Straight sets. Was a pretty jarring scoreline, was a pretty jarring matchup. This is different. Zverev was 4 months into a comeback from a grotesque ankle injury, which we saw in the semis of the 2022 French Open. Rolled it, stopped it, broke a bunch of shit. Had some ups and downs, some stops and starts with that recovery. In Australia, 2023, Zverev looked like a ghost of himself. You could tell it was going to take some time to work back. When you felt like he was back, was at least the fitness was there to make the second week, to make the semifinals of a Grand Slam again. I don't know that the tennis was there. He is playing significantly better going into this semi than he was last year going into the semis against Casper Ruud. Now, does that account for, straight sets win, turning it the other way? I think it will. One of the things that, Casper Ruud actually has more RPM, rotations per minute, than Rafa Nadal on his forehand. He creates a higher spin profile, at least, and this isn't prime Rafa, right? They started keeping these stats later on, so the 32-year-old version of Rafa is not the 25-year-old version of Rafa, so on and so forth. But point is to say, this guy gets some serious spin, jump on the ball, which you also can't see from that annoying above angle on television. I wish we could watch every match from the slightly elevated behind the player's perspective, because then you would get a feel for how brutal the movement is. You would get a real feel for the spin profile of a Casper Ruud, where on the above view on TV, it looks like the ball is bouncing short and is hittable, whereas it's actually bouncing short and getting above your shoulder. Or at least my shoulder, both of your shoulders, maybe not someone who's 6'7" like an Alex Zverev. And that's kind of the point, right? He rips that forehand to the inside out to the Zverev backhand. Zverev can handle it. Probably, one of the best 5 on earth of being able to handle that ball, because it won't jump up just as high, because he simply is taller than the rest of us. So he will be able to handle it more. He will be in a bunch of Casper service games. He will make many more returns than he did last year, right? He was missing returns. He wasn't quick off the bat. His movement is way better this year. His forehand is he's hitting it as well. And people say like his forehand's bad. His forehand's not bad. Shut up if you keep saying that. It is a weakness only compared to the rest of his game. If he was someone who was 30 in the world, you'd say, wow, he can hit it. He gets a pretty decent spin profile. He doesn't miss it that often. Like, the narrative would be completely different. It's just because his serve, he serves 74% first serves in. Really struggle against De Minaur. De Minaur, the first serve percentage came way down. He was at like 71%. Real struggle, which is also higher than everyone else on tour every day. World-class backhand, 6'6", 6'7", moves, is a natural clay court mover. So then what do we say? Net game is above tour average. Great. Forehand is just above tour average. So then we talk about his forehand in a more negative manner, because it comes up in every scouting report, and it will again here. Casper Ruud is going to have to extend the court to that side. Zverev doesn't flatten that ball out very often. He can hit it really big, but it has some spin profile. When he's extended, he loops it, right? He plays a little bit higher. He's been hitting that one up the line, basically to reset. If Zverev hits that forehand up the line and it's high and heavy, gets above someone's back end, they have to take that ball cross court, which then goes into Zverev's comfort zone, right? He is sunken 5 or 6 feet behind, and he can create space for that backhand. He will not be beat for pace, doesn't get beat for height that often. That is not an accident that he's getting that matchup over and over. It is by virtue of him having control of that forehand, getting the spin profile, actually having control over that ball, which I don't think he had as much last year. He is serving better. He is serving harder. He is serving at a higher percentage. The second serve doesn't look as yippy. I like Zverev in this match, but I consistently, always, and I'm an asshole for it, I consistently underestimate Casper Ruud, as we all do. We all act like he's a visitor to the semis and finals of Grand Slams, and we are fucking wrong. How many times does he have to do it before an asshole like me doesn't pick Zverev in the semis? It's at least one more time. But at one of these points, I'm gonna learn. But listen, Casper, I would worry if some people were getting the day off. I don't worry about him. I think he will show up. I don't think the day off, the weird cadence of Novak pulling out, he's going to be fresh mentally, fresh physically. I think Zverev will be the same. Him going through the demon in straight sets, full day. Like I think both are going to be fresh, set. And I think we can say the same thing for the other two semifinalists. The show of the semifinals. Here is a look at the next 10 years of our lives, friends, as tennis fans, is the Chuckster, my favorite player to watch currently, back in full flight. I think he's played at the highest level so far in this tournament. I think he's been the best player, and with as many question marks coming in, and the fact that he had played 3 matches on the dirty stuff coming in, hell of an effort. Finding form, I think Indian Wells and getting through that tournament, playing well in Miami, finding form will change the arc of his entire year. I took Sinner at the beginning. I think that was a risky pick. I don't know that many people chose him to win the tournament. On a match-by-match basis, he just smothers you. Made a mid-year adjustment on his serve last year. Brought the foot up, holding over 90% of the time. When I saw him in Monte-Carlo last year, he looked like you could expose his movement a little bit on clay. You could hit behind him a little bit on clay. his results weren't as consistent on clay. He's still the upside. He can still, he's Italian. He grew up on clay, right? But I don't know that it's ever going to be his best surface. I think so highly of him. I think he can win this tournament even with it not being his best surface. I took him at the beginning in our pre-draw show. A lot of that was probably just because of the question marks around the Chuckster. They're both healthy. They're both in full flight. I have to stick with my pick, and I think it's just purely out of ego because it would be cool if I called him at the beginning and if he won. So I don't know that it's based in balls and strikes. If anything, the Moutet situation against Sinner in the first set where he's playing a bunch of drop shots and he's playing just this weird ass brand of tennis where Jannik can't throw punches because he's constantly moving. Guess who else can do that? I'll give you one guess, producer Mike.
Carlos Alcaraz,
the
maybe?
Chuckster, except he can punch you in the mouth too. Right, he can do the body blows, but then all of a sudden your chin's exposed, and he can knock you out. Moutet will just keep throwing jabs at your face until you just want to bury him. I'm going to take Sinner. Zero faith in it. I don't have any confidence in it. This isn't something. I'll tell you when I feel confident. I feel confident in Iga Swiatek. I love Coco. I have a friendship with Coco. I hope Coco wins, not because I dislike Iga, just because I really, really appreciate Coco and I've spent time with her. I love Iga. I respect her. It knows no bounds. But I think I'm going to stick with Sinner. If for no other reason than it's what I said 11 days ago, and I'm not going to flip. I'm not going to turn my back if I think Carlos is a 52% favorite. But this is the future. This is the next generation, and post Big Three, I think a lot of us worried about, is the tennis going to drop off a little bit? Are we going to have these consistent champions? Are we going to have these bankable personalities? Are they going to get along? Are we going to go back to stylistically? I mean, Alcaraz is as much fun to watch as Roger was in prime. He has that variety. He can hit every shot. Sinner has worked, man. He was this Gumby body thing where you could shove him around. He would get nervy sometimes. He would all of a sudden bury two forehands when he hadn't missed one in 40 minutes. Work has been why he is now number one on earth. 28th person to do so. He's got to be a heavy favorite, by the way, if we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves. To be the there've been 17 year-end number ones. Is that right? Is that what we said? He would be the 18th. Year-end number one is a massive, massive, massive deal. That goes down in every record book. It's not a career high. It's literally when you're looking at the roll call in tennis history, he doesn't have the points to defend coming up, right? He didn't win Wimbledon like Carlos did. Carlos wins Wimbledon and he gains 0 points this year. Those are already accounted for, right? Carlos made a run, was further than who did Sinner lose to? Zverev. I think in the round of 16 at the U.S. Open last year. Not a lot of points coming off there, right? He is set up very nicely. Made a huge run at the end of year one and a bunch of stuff. But as far as the remaining slams go, he lost second round last year at Roland Garros. Guess who's getting points if they win this match? Alcaraz has made exactly 0 points to this point in the French Open so far. 0. Sinner has made second round to semis, adds finals. He made semis at Wimbledon last year. If he makes a run there, it's round of 16 at U.S. Open. There is wide open space. He did win in the summer in Canada last year. He's got to be the odds-on favorite, at least even money, to finish the year number one. So congratulations to Jannik Sinner. That is you don't get to number one by accident. That is a lifetime of work. Anyone who discredits that accomplishment in any way, shape, or form, if it's Novak's hurt, shut up. You better be, if you're going to qualify anything ever about, I remember when Alcaraz made it, well, Novak couldn't play. I don't care. In order to criticize someone who's number one on earth in a global sport, no, it's not like American football where we're world champions, where no one else actually plays the game anywhere else on earth. And we just say world because it's great. Because we are the best football team in the world, just no one else plays. Global sport, number one in the world. If you naysay this at all or qualify it in a negative way, you better be really good at your job. You better be great at your job. Congrats to Jannik Sinner. I get goosebumps even thinking about it because what an accomplishment. That is a lifelong goal. And I promise you, he will not think about it this weekend. He will be able to compartmentalize. It is something that nobody can ever take away from him. He will never be less than a career high ranking of number one in the world. Big, big deal. All the props. And oh, by the way, he's playing someone younger than him who has also been number one in the world and finished year end number one in the world. We are starting to see the early rivalry of I can say, and I'm not one to sit here and say so and so they're going to win 12 slam. No, these guys are going to win. Like again, I'm going to run you through history. Okay, Agassi has 8, Connors has 8, McEnroe has 7, Edberg has 6, Becker. You go on like the absolute icons of our game. Forget about the big 3 because I don't want to hear. Well, they have 24. These guys are like they may not even match that. Shut up. They will be absolute icons and legends of this game. I don't know which one's going to end up with 10. I don't know which one's going to end up with 6. All I know is that when they do end up with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they are on Mount Rushmore of our sport, right? Like they are in that league. They will be in that league. Now, hope injury doesn't have anything to say about it. This is a absolute titan of a matchup. This is a Tyson fight in the late 80s. This is electricity. This is what we have to look forward to. I cannot wait to watch these two go at it. As a fan, predictions be damned. There are no losers when these two match up. We can all guess. We're going to get some right. We're going to get some wrong. What I do know with confidence is we are staring directly in the face of the future of our sport. Hopefully, a couple others enter the arena. These two have separated. Right? I love all the other players. You won't find a bigger Medvedev fan than me. He will tell you these two are on a different planet talent wise. He's going to get his wins. He is a number one player. He is a Grand Slam winner. He is a Hall of Famer. These two are on a different level. Not every day, not every surface, not every scenario. Again, if we pan out, look at scale over time, these two will be absolute legends of our game already. 2 number ones going off, scoring off semifinals, Roland Garros. I promise you, I will not miss a point. We know that you will not miss a point also. And please check in for our full recap show Monday evening. Is that right, Mike? Monday evening on
TV? Monday evening. They haven't set a time yet.
Okay.
But we'll tape as soon as the finals are over on
Sunday.
Yep. And so real quick, though, before we go. So
yep.
who you picking to win it all? Men and women.
I mean, I'm going to pick whoever wins Sinner Alcaraz. So I think I'll go Sinner, and obviously I'm going to go Iga. I don't think anyone's not going to go Iga. It's just like, listen, upsets happen, but similar to Rybakina and Sabalenka, if they play those matches again tomorrow, I would still make the same pick. Nothing I saw would convince me enough to not think they would win that matchup more often than not. I don't deal in feelings. I deal in pragmatism, matchups, and statistics. Whoever wins Sinner Alcaraz, I think, is able to separate. I think Zverev's in the final. Sinner over Zverev. In the final, I had Novak in the final. That's obviously not going to happen. Not sure I can account for meniscus in predictions, but here we are. Sinner Iga, check us out Monday evening on T2. We will come on and film our show as soon as we are off air. John Wertheim will join. Hopefully we can pull Kim Kleisters in, friend of the show. Next week's episode, I want to talk about real quick. So hopefully you've enjoyed this kind of like add-on episode that is keeping Techie Sean from his dinner and his whatever else he's doing tonight. Next week's episode, I think, is going to be really interesting. I love, obviously, live tennis. I love results. I like seeing legacies made. I like chopping it up. I like matchups. What I also really, really like, and I think was kind of the spark for this podcast becoming real, is giving a look behind the curtain when Roland Garros is going on. I think we do less of that because we're covering current events. Next week, obviously, calms down a little bit before the grass ramps up. What do you say we talk about money in tennis, guys? Like appearance fees, how all it works. Do you negotiate against your agent? What does a shoe and clothing deal look like? How many endorsements is too many? What can you put in your sleeve? What are the size of the logos? How do you pay taxes and declare them in 27 states and 17 countries? How do we feel about that? Maybe just we're not reacting to a semifinal somewhere, but we can actually take a look behind the curtain of tennis a little bit more. I will be drinking an Olipop, and we will be talking about it next week. Check us out. We will do Monday recap show. which will be kind of a hybrid version of Racket Rundown presented by Wilson, and just kind of a full analysis of goings on, takeaways, upstarts that we didn't get to in this show that may have had great runs a little bit. Who's looking for more? Who's looking for form again? What do we think about the grass court season? All wrapped up with a bow. John Wertheim will be joining us from Paris. Will tell us what it was like on site. We'll get his insights. We'll get the insights of the legend Kim Kleisters. And that'll be it. I'll be there too. Thanks for listening to this check-in version of Served. We certainly appreciate you, and we'll talk again soon.